Welcome to the Life After Sugar podcast, the podcast that's not just about sugar, but about your relationship with it and also with food and especially with yourself. So if you want to discover your life after sugar and hear inspiring stories from all kinds of people who also cut out sugar in their way, at their pace, for their own reasons, this is the podcast for you. Because when you take away the sugar, you can finally discover the real sweetness in your life. I'm your host, Netta Gorman, and this week my guest is Shannon, who used to be in the fitness world, including managing a gym and bodybuilding competitions. Even after lots of competitions and being on stage in a bikini showing off her body, she experienced lots of health issues, like fatigue and hormone issues and gut issues and inflammation. And in fact, her body was stressed out, even though she didn't see it that way. But as Shannon says herself, she was at her most unhealthy when she was doing her bodybuilding shows. So listen how Shannon stepped out of that so-called health world to get really healthy. We'll get to our chat in just a minute. But first, I just wanted to tell you that if you're looking for some free resources, then I have plenty for you. First, download my 5 tips to get rid of cravings. And those 5 tips may not be what you think they are. So go to aftersugarclub.com and download your 5 tips today. And while you're at aftersugarclub.com, why not take the cravings quiz? I created this cravings quiz specifically to help you start thinking more deeply about what triggers your cravings. And when you do this quiz, you'll get your personalized score as well as my practical tips to help you take your first step to get rid of cravings. Those free resources are at aftersugarclub.com. And also, come check out the Life After Sugar Facebook page and subscribe to the Life After Sugar YouTube channel, as well as my Instagram account at My Life After Sugar, which is where you'll get all kinds of inspiration so that you can see that it's perfectly possible to live a happy and active life, even if you don't eat sugar. You can also check out my TikTok account at Netta_lifeaftersugar. All right, here's my chat with Shannon. All right, so I'm here today with Shannon. Shannon, can you tell us a bit about your background and how you grew up with food and sugar?
Yeah, my background. So I actually grew up as a triplet in the States. And I grew up kind of, oh, in the early 90s, around a lot of diet culture. And I grew up around kind of a healthy balance of eating, right? But it was a lot of, no fat, low sugar, low cal, which now we understand what kind of additives are in that, right? But I kind of grew up with that around me a lot. And that kind of shaped a little bit of my interest in health. And now what I do as a holistic, functional nutritionist and, was kind of being around that. And that kind of shaped a lot of my thoughts going forward. And a
So,
lot of issues probably too.
and a lot of health issues, maybe. Did
Yeah.
who did the cooking at your house when you were growing up?
My mom did all of our cooking. I mean, my dad would occasionally like grill and we would eat very clean. My mom was again very health conscious. So it was a lot of meat, vegetable, potato. Also because my dad would only really eat meat and potatoes,
Yeah.
So, a lot of it was clean, but now looking back, all of the extras, right? The healthy stuff was just loaded with, artificial ingredients, artificial sugars, just for the sake of low fat, low calories. I think that's what people often do. Obviously I'm in the metabolic industry and a lot of women come to me for weight loss and they're like, I eat low fat, all the no sugar or all the, low calorie. And I'm like, have you looked at the ingredients? Do you know what's in there? You know what I mean? If you
Yeah.
don't have fat, you probably have sugar added, plus fat's essential for hormone health. So
It goes against everything we've been told.
yeah, Yep.
So
Yep.
it's understandable that, it's this huge mindset shift, this huge 180-degree turn to go from what not only have we been told, but our parents,
Yep.
to like, well, wait a minute, fat isn't that bad for you. The low calorie stuff is full of sugar. Like, how are we supposed to know this stuff?
Oh, it's really heartbreaking a little bit because again, probably 70% of clients come to me with weight loss concerns. And probably 50% of those people need to eat more food, period. Like
Hmm.
their metabolism's adapted, their body's not getting the nutrients it needs, and they probably 50% of those people too have gut issues, and that's again stemming from a lot of the food. So it's like you're telling me I need to eat more to lose weight, and I want to balance my hormones, but to do that I have to eat more and less of this and more fat and more like it's just a mind screw up for lack of better words, and it's very difficult to rewire that, especially when our clients are, between mid 30s and mid 50s. They've had a lot of years to get that ingrained in them, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Plus, you don't have a white lab coat on, or a doctorate to your name, so medical doctorate. So how are people like we are trained to go ask the doctor at the same time doctors don't have that much nutritional training? That's an understatement.
Oh, then I could have a whole conversation about this. Really, truly, I could have a whole hour-long conversation with this because doctors have typically only had maybe one course on nutrition in their 10, 12 years of training. And in that, it's not really applicable. It's very science driven and it's what the university wants you to know, right? And that's fine, but that's not their specialty. Just like my specialty is not to go and prescribe the right kind of antibiotic for you, And so I think in the functional health world, which is where I'm at, and the Western medicine world, they're often like pinned against each other. And it doesn't have to be that way. There's beauty
Mhm.
in both. And so a lot of times people are like, oh, you hate doctors. And it's like, no, I just believe that if you want true root cause healing, the doctor isn't going to do that. They are there to medicate when a symptom and a problem arises, right? And even then, I will say most people that came into the functional health world came in because they tried the Western medicine route. They tried to go to the doctors. They tried to do the right thing, the thing that everyone said to do, and they still struggled,
Yeah.
right? Or you're just given blanket advice, like a doctor sees your triglycerides, your cholesterol, and your high liver enzymes, and it's like, you know what, you should probably eat less, work out more, probably cut out your sugar. And while not that's not necessarily bad advice, it can be for the wrong person who's under eating, over exercising, but then where's the mindset work behind that? Where's how to actually implement that? And is that even the right path for you? And so that's where people like me come in to bridge that gap.
Yes. Okay. All right. Yeah, thank goodness you're there as well. And as you say, it's complementary and not one pitted against the other.
Yeah.
And so, what is your story for your own health issues?
Yeah. It's quite dramatic a little bit, but in a very long story short, um, about 8 years ago, I was in the health and fitness industry. I was managing a gym and decided, I had already been dealing with like fatigue issues, hormone issues, gut issues, but I kind of, as many people, I didn't think I was stressed and I didn't think my body was stressed out and that it was a problem, right? And I was like, what better to stress myself out more than to go and try to do a bodybuilding show? So I went on to go do a bodybuilding show and I won it. And probably about 2 to 3 weeks later, my whole health fell apart.
Hmm.
I went from, I have highs as far as how I looked. Don't get me wrong, I was my most unhealthy when I was at my bodybuilding show. I think there's a lot of misconception if you were to look at me and be like, wow, that's the epitome of health. It is not. Um, But I started having rampant inflammation issues. And I had always had joint issues and back issues since about 13 years old. And it was kind of brushed off because I was a professional dancer. So like it was like, oh, you're working out too much, right? But something was weird. Like something was off and I didn't know what it was. My hormones, I never had periods. I was skipping them. I had cystic acne. My stomach was always bloated. It was just like I knew things were wrong, but it wasn't until my body just like pulled the rug out for me that I had to start addressing it.
Hmm.
And I couldn't walk. So I couldn't actually get out of bed. I had so much inflammation in my hips and my back that I couldn't, like, I'd walked with a cane. And I was on multiple pain relievers a day just to go to work. And I was a trainer at a gym at this time, just coming
Huh?
been up. I couldn't walk.
And
Um,
how old were you at this time?
27.
That's really young.
Yep. Yep. 27. And so I was at the peak, right? And trying to train people. And I remember trying to hide it for a while. So I walked with like a foam roller. You know what those things, those tall
Yeah.
foam rollers. So I tried to walk with that for a while so people wouldn't ask questions, but it wasn't enough. And then my 80-year-old client gave me his dead wife's cane
Oh,
because I refused to go out and buy a cane. Um, and I still have that cane to this day.
huh.
Um, and I would rampant issues. And I went doctor to doctor to doctor for a year. I mean, I'm talking 30, 40 specialists. Nobody could help me. The only thing I was offered were drugs. And I was told I would be on drugs for the rest of my life. And that was the only way. And I remember talking to one of the women saying, I think I'm gonna try changing my diet a little bit more. And the rheumatologist laughed at me and said, you can, but it's not gonna help enough to get off these.
Hmm.
And that's where the story gets interesting and I feel like relatable because I did change my diet and I did all of the things. I cleaned up my diet. I tried autoimmune protocol diet. I was on a ton of supplements. I was doing like all of the quotation right things, and I still wasn't better.
Huh.
And so that's where a lot of times you can get the story of like, I just cut out gluten and my whole life changed. I just did the autoimmune protocol diet and like my whole life, I got sicker.
Really?
And so I was like, that can't be the only way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I knew it was helping because all my blood work was perfect. Everything was pristine. Like it didn't even show I had inflammation in my body. My CRP was not even high, which is an inflammatory marker.
So on
It,
paper, you were perfectly healthy, but you felt
yep.
like crap.
Felt like crap every day, knew something was wrong, and literally couldn't bear weight on my body. My husband had to put my shoes and socks on for me. For me to walk into work, I had 5 leaves a day, and so it was like, but every doctor looked at me and I was fine. I was healthy. I was fit. I'm not somebody that has autoimmune arthritis. So I was brushed off, right? And so I was like, well, if you aren't going to help me, I have to take matters into my own hands, right? So I did. But again, I think this is where it's really important to understand your unique biology and your unique, blueprint because diet alone is amazing in changing your diet. So for me, when I went, have you heard of the autoimmune protocol?
I have,
Diet?
yes. Might be nice to explain it.
It's incredibly strict, right? And it pretty much you can't eat any foods that could trigger an immune or an inflammatory reaction, which is like everything.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much eating, very limited food. And I didn't mind doing that because I was like, if I can heal, I will do it, right? So I stripped everything, but I was already in a depleted state. And I think that's what people don't understand is when you're already depleted and then you deplete yourself further, you can get really sick. And I wasn't getting enough food and nutrients in my body, right?
Hmm.
But I couldn't because my gut was so inflamed. I was having chronic diarrhea every day. My bloating, I looked like I was 6 months pregnant. I would eat a piece of chicken and my stomach would blow up. So it was like, well, I knew I needed to eat more, but I can't, you know? And
Ouch.
so then I did like a SIBO diet and then for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth because I was like, that's probably what's causing this. All of the supplements
No.
and it didn't do it. And so I finally like my turning point was I did functional lab testing and I finally found somebody that could like understand more and I did stool testing. If you have you heard of stool testing?
Yeah, I have. Yes, yes. I don't, I'm not going to explain it.
You poop in a cup,
Continue.
test your gut microbiome. It's people always joke, my husband always jokes. He's like, I've never met so many women so pretty that talk about poop so much. Um but I'm like, that is the foundation of your health. You have to like your poop tells you a lot about what's going on.
Yeah.
Um, and that was the first time I felt validated because everything was horrific. Just like high autoimmune markers, leaky gut issues. I had something called C. diff. Like I had all of these things wrong. And for the first time, I was like, wow, this is why I can't get better. I'm not understanding the root cause. I'm just throwing a diet, throwing another diet, throwing another diet here. I mean, at the sixth diet, I was like, enough is enough because my mental health was declining,
Yeah.
you know?
I want to take a quick break to say that if this is your first time here, then welcome and thank you for listening to this podcast. And whether you're new or a regular and you haven't yet rated or reviewed this podcast, could I ask you to scroll down and tap on the stars to rate this podcast and also to write a short review to let me know how this podcast is helping you in your life after sugar. I love reading your reviews. And when you rate and review this podcast, not only does it encourage me to continue making new episodes, but it also helps to share this podcast and have more people see it so that we can help more people feel better and lose weight with less sugar. So again, thank you for rating and reviewing this podcast and for spreading the word about sugar. So is it that blood tests showed there was nothing wrong, but poop showed that there were lots of things wrong?
Yeah, but they're different, right? And so my blood work, the only blood work that my doctors would run were, your normal panels, your CMPs, CBCs, autoimmune panels. There wasn't one thing off, not at all. The only reason I knew genetically, I have a autoimmune disease called ankylosing spondylitis. I won't make you repeat that.
Thank you.
Um, but it's an autoimmune inflammation or autoimmune disease that autoimmune arthritis that attacks your spine and your hips and can attack the joints. And in its most progressed state, your spine can fuse together. And I knew about this because my cousins had it and my great uncle had it. So like I was tested for this at an early age when I had the back issues and there's a gene marker for it. And I was positive for that. So that's the only reason I knew about this. And I kept trying to push getting diagnosed. And they thought I was trying to get pills. And I was like, I don't want to be on pills. Like, I just want diagnosis so I can get help. Like, you know what I mean? But so nothing showed up wrong. And even when I went to GI doctors having all of this, stomach issues, I was dismissed. Nobody would test me for anything. They would tell me cut out dairy, which I was, eat more fiber. That wasn't the problem. Do a low FODMAP diet. I already did one of those. It didn't work. And it was like I had exhausted those options. And I finally went to my fourth GI doctor because I was like, nobody's listening to me. And I pushed for a colonoscopy and I said, I'm not leaving this place until you give me one. And then I had polyps. And I was like, well, thank God I pushed, I advocated for myself because who knows what would have happened had those grown. And I was 27. I wouldn't be getting a colonoscopy till I was in my 40s, So yeah, so no, it was so different. So when I did my stool testing, that tests your gut microbiome and it's going to test like what's going on in the integrity of your gut. And I will tell you, within not even 2 months of doing the right protocol, just simple shifts of like stuff that was actually getting to the root of my issue, my pain, 80% better. I
Wow.
ditched the pain, my skin got better, and it was like, people don't understand the correlation between inflammation and gut health, right? And that could also, sugar is a huge thing, right? Sugar is going to drive a lot of inflammation, a lot of candida issues, right? Candida issues can lead to mental health issues and serotonin issues, right? Like people and inflammation issues and weight issues. It's just, there's so much that the gut, is important for. So that was kind of step one in my healing journey. And once I could actually digest food again and lower inflammation, I could start doing the other things to like make myself feel better. You know what I mean?
And so that's amazing. But because first of all, we tend to go on blood work as the yardstick for whether or not you have any markers or if you're healthy or not healthy. And who would imagine, testing your poop because like it's just not a sort of thing that you talk about in polite conversation.
Maybe
And
not
not
you, but
yeah, you and I, we are with just a general subject of conversation. But
yeah.
I mean, and then try finding a doctor that will do it or suggest it. That it's not very common
Well, and it's because it's not covered by insurance, and that's the problem, right? And I know
in the
we are in
States.
different, countries, but um, you know, unfortunately the functional health world isn't covered. HSAs and FSAs, which are, I don't know if you guys have those. I don't think you have those up there, but
Not in
like,
Canada.
yeah. So you can get reimbursed if you have like different spending accounts, but insurance won't cover it. It's getting a little bit better with some stool testing, but the main tests that we do with our clients are hair tissue mineral analysis, which is minerals are the foundation to literally everything. So important. Stool testing and hormone testing, but they're expensive and they're an investment. And that's a huge barrier, unfortunately, like just lab fees for stool
Totally.
tests. Getting the person to prescribe it, you have to go to a functional doctor or practioner or somebody that can order it. And for me, it was my chiropractor who I was seeing every day for years, who honestly kept pushing the stool test for probably a year. And I was stubborn. I was like, no, I know my health. I'm in the health industry. I can do fitness. And so I kept saying, I'm going to figure it out myself. And I tried everything. And it
Mhm.
wasn't until I was like, and like looking back, that's why I preach so much to people in my like content is like, don't wait till things hit the floor because it's going to take a lot longer to recover. And you could have spent the last year of your life. I mean, I really struggled for so long,
Yeah,
had I just gotten over myself and been like, you know what, I can't figure it out on my own. I would have had a different story. So
totally, totally. And so you still taking medications when you got to the root cause of your inflammation? Did you change your diet and continue medication?
Oh, it's such a great question. Because, yes. And at the time, so when I was diagnosed, the only reason I was diagnosed is because I ended up in the emergency room twice because I was like, at some point, I can't get out of bed. Like, my pain is too much, it's too high. Um, and when I finally was diagnosed and able to start medication, it saved my life for that time. And I think that's again, like where I'm at now, people are like, oh, don't talk to her if you want to be on drugs. No, they can be life-saving. And I still felt like crap. And that
Mhm.
was a problem is my inflammation was better, but it was still flaring. But my fatigue was so bad. My stomach issues were so bad. I still wasn't having periods and my skin was still a mess. You know what I mean? But the inflammation was better and I was able to restore a lot better of my quality of life. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it wasn't until a little bit later that I ended up getting those tests. And so when I ended up feeling better, I was still on the medication because I was too scared to come off of it. And they were infusions, so they were every 8 weeks. And so I think the turning point for me where I decided, well, it's a little bit longer of a story. I wanted to get pregnant and I wanted to get my body in a healthy state. And they kept telling me the medications were fine for pregnancy, but something didn't feel right. If my body is being suppressed, immune, how does that not impact a child? Do you know what I mean? Like, I just didn't make sense to me. And then with insurance here, the ones that were approved for pregnancy, you had to go through one and then try and fail that one to go to the next one, then try and fail that one to go to the one that I wanted to be on. And that whole process, it was months. And I never felt good after that. Like, I was just like, everything just started falling apart. And I was like, I'm on these medications and I haven't felt good in months. And I was like, we're changing this. We're done. And then I pulled myself off cold turkey. And I was like, we're done. I'm not doing this anymore. And I worked really, really hard on my nervous system, which is the biggest thing why I wasn't fully healing. I worked on some detox because here in the States we had a certain stab that we had to get that really threw my body off of my remission. So I had to work a little bit on some detox from that, a little bit of gut healing from that, nervous system work. And then from there, I never looked back. And I
Wow.
felt the best I've felt ever since.
And lucky for you that you had this knowledge to help you advocate for yourself because most people don't have that and wouldn't
Yeah.
know where to turn if nothing was helping. And so, what did you do for your nervous system that made that big of a difference?
Oh man. Um, I'm going to tell a quick story on this because a lot of women I work with and myself, we're really high achieving women, right? We can handle a lot of stress. I say that in quotes. We don't think quotation we're stressed. And the reason I say that is because for years, everyone's like, stress, stress, stress. It's important to do. And I was like, I take a bath here and there, I work out, I take care of my stress, right? I didn't truly realize the stress and until I didn't have a choice. But and like I was doing the food, I was doing the supplements, I was lowering toxic, a lot of the inflammatory things in my environment, which is another huge aspect that people don't talk about. Is just like our toxic load. And yet I still wasn't fully better. I was better, but I wasn't healed and I knew it. And I was like, if I'm getting off this medication for good, I need to start taking this seriously. And not to bring again, like kind of the jab in this at all, but I got very, very affected by that. Um, my husband and I both were in the ER multiple times. And, um, it was after that where I really wanted to go to the Smoky Mountains. I really wanted to hike in the States here. And we had had this trip planned for so long and I wasn't able to walk. Right. I had back with my cane. I was not, able to bear weight on my legs. And I was like, I'm going on that trip. We're not canceling it. And I had like 3 months. And I was like, I'm pulling out all the stops.
Yeah.
Right. And I didn't really take it seriously. Okay. I'm just being honest. Like I did to an extent. I did some of the work. And when we went on our trip and I was in nature and I was hiking and I was not working, my pain went away, really. Um, Not fully, but a ton. And I remember being on the top of the Smoky Mountains looking at the most beautiful sunrise I've ever seen. And I was like, shit, it's my stress. I feel great here. Right. And
Yeah.
like that was a turning point where when I came home, I was like, fine, I get it. I see what you mean now, universe or whatever. I was like, I'm gonna do it. And then from there, I started one, getting rid of some certain people in my life that were not serving me mentally. Um, Work was very, very hard, but I started just putting more boundaries at the time on what I was doing. Um, I started doing more meditation, which was very uncomfortable for me at the time.
Mm.
Um, I remember I hired a mindset coach that this was after this, but I remember him saying like, I want you to meditate for, an hour a day. I was like, I'll give you 5 minutes. I was like, 5 minutes felt uncomfortable. Now I do it for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day. But, I started becoming more in tune with that. Listening to Hertz frequencies was really important for me. Just the biggest thing was learning that it's okay to slow down and that I didn't have to be the best at everything and just do more, more, more. And it was like giving myself that permission to just slow down.
Yeah.
That was a big one, right? And everybody, I've done tapping, I've done breath work, I've done meditation, and everybody's going to find the thing that feels really good for them. You know what I mean? And I
Oh,
pull out different stops when I feel a certain way. But now my nervous system is so grounded that, I was here all the time where I didn't feel stressed unless I was here. Now I'm like a good here where if I'm here, I know something's off. I know exactly what I need to bring it back to baseline. But it doesn't take as much to pull me back from here to here. Now I can do some simple breath work, shaking, and I can feel a lot more regulated. You know what I mean?
yeah, that's very empowering for you to know what to do. It's a different thing to actually do it, but the first step is knowing what to do or what works for you.
And I think because I'll get this question so much, like what did you do? What was the one thing? It's never one thing. I mean, that was 2021, and here we are 2025. And in that time, I have hired mindset coaches. I have hired multiple energy workers. I have, explored my faith. I have explored different, internal health things that were maybe driving anxiety. And, it was like, it's never just one thing. I wish I could say, and
Yeah.
now it's led me into this beautiful new realm of I do bioenergetic testing now and bioresonance testing, which is like this whole other beautiful form of tapping into the energy of your body and what the body needs and healing it from that perspective, which is a beautiful blend of the functional world with the energetic world. And it's been fascinating to see. But yeah, it's just a continual process and just figuring out what feels good for you.
Amazing, amazing. And in all of this, you also found from your diet what works for you, right?
Yeah, oh God, diet. There was a point where I was eating 5 foods a day, maybe six. And I was fearing foods because for a long time I underate and I feared eating foods. I
Mm.
wanted, like, I was a professional dancer. I was in like wearing a bikini on stage in front of thousands of people, right? Like I was scared, I wanted to be like thin, right? And then I do a bodybuilding show, which talk about body dysmorphia when you don't have a six-pack abs and shredded. You're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so I had to really not learn what foods worked for me, but also mentally feel comfortable around food again. And when I did my healing, a lot of gut, nervous system, mineral healing, whatever. Now I eat 90% of the foods I want to eat, right? And I don't fear them. And I just
Mm.
know certain foods that are trigger me. And I've tried to reintroduce them multiple times, and my body always says no, and it's okay. I just keep them out. But it was a lot, it was trial and error. You know what I mean? Like I did food sensitivity tests. Don't waste your money on that, and it was just like, it was a lot of just fine tuning and knowing, slapping a diet on it. Sometimes a diet short term, like if you have severe gut issues, you might have to be very strict with no sugar, no gluten, no nuts, no, for a short period of time to get your body to just like chill out.
Yeah.
But the trick is you have to come out of that too. And like for me, I stayed there for so long. I was so scared to add anything in because I wasn't feeling good, right? And so, but now, just being able to eat more foods. Again, stress is a big one. If your body's constantly stressed, it's going to just reject a ton of food in your life, right? And I'm very moderate now. I still don't completely not eat sugar. But it's not, I'm very cautious about what I eat. And if I am going to eat it, I sure as heck better enjoy it because like, I'm not going to have sugar in my ketchup and, have that be something that my body, it takes, right?
Yeah.
Um, I eat fully gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, egg-free, peanut-free, and not, yeah, peanut-free and for the most part, tomato-free. But that was again some trial and error, figuring
Yeah.
out like, when I would eat this, I would get a cyst on my face. Okay. Do I need to do more gut healing? Do I really just like it just might be that like eggs don't agree with me. Same with soy. And it's like what I tell people too is it's not a form of restriction, it's a form of self-respect. So if you keep eating foods that don't agree with you, there has to be some mindset work around that too, because it's like I'm not trying to restrict and take all this food away from you because I'm in the name of health. I'm doing it because like your body doesn't like it. And maybe it will down the road. I've seen people be able to eat, I can eat gluten without an issue anymore. That was not the case. It used to inflame me so badly. I choose not to because I feel better without it. But like,
Yeah.
you know, um, but that's a big mindset block for people too, because a lot of people come from this diet world and this is restriction. It's like, no, it's respect. It's respect
Yeah.
for what our body wants and needs.
I love that. Yeah, it's respect. And I call it freedom because if, certain foods, let's just say sugar for the sake of this podcast, if certain foods like sugar are causing you health issues, cravings, name it, then isn't it freeing rather than restrictive not to eat that sugar that's
Yeah.
causing you all this suffering?
The thing with sugar too, people don't give it up long enough to see how freeing it can be. you know because I think like if you really have bad sugar cravings, right, which most people in some aspect do, right, a lot of it's linked to blood sugar regulation issues, right? Are you eating enough protein? A lot of it's linked to gut issues, things like candida and parasites can drive sugar cravings, right? And stress. Those are probably the three main things, right? um so I believe like going and understanding those things can help reduce the sugar cravings, but then sometimes just getting rid of it and doing it depends mentally where people are at. If people again have a bad relationship with food, I take it a lot slower. But if people are like, let's just do it, let's heal, 30 days, I can guarantee you at the end of those 30 days you're like, I actually don't crave this that much anymore.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
actually don't need it as much. My body isn't like screaming for it as much, but you never gave yourself the time to actually get to that side. You know what I mean? And then again, keep working on your adrenals, your blood sugar. Like you can't just like what I see all the time with people doing these 30-day no sugar is they cut it out. They feel terrible because all they want to, and they can't stop thinking about it. And then they just go right back to what they were doing and it inflames them like tenfold,
Yes.
And so it's like, um, for the sugar is never going to serve you. Let's be real. Like sugar is never going to help you. maybe a little sweet treat mentally here and there. Like, that's okay, a little bit here and there. But like, no matter how you cut it, it's not good for the body. So it's how can we make our body a more suitable environment to stop wanting it all of the freaking time?
Totally, totally, absolutely. Yeah, well said. And yes, and I agree about that length of time. Any change takes time. And I call it retraining your taste buds to get used to less and less sweetness, just in general, from sugar or anywhere else. And then over time, at least my experience has been that I don't even like sweet tastes anymore.
Yep.
It's like someone like did something to my brain. It wasn't someone, it was just that I didn't feed my sweet tooth anymore and
Mhm.
let it just get used to less and less sweetness, basically.
That's so true. And I will tell people that, and they will straight up never believe me.
Yeah,
Um,
you have to
They
actually
don't
experience
it.
it.
100%. And I think that's what's beautiful about this podcast too, is like this can happen and it can happen for you, even if you've been this way my whole life, right? And this is just who I am. Like, no, it's not.
Yeah,
Like you can change at any point who you are and to optimize yourself, right?
love it. Yes, totally. Wow. And Shannon, if someone wants to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, so my Instagram is shannon.salge, Salge. Or my Facebook. I'm pretty active on there at Shannon Salge. Then the best place in the future is probably when this comes out is my podcast, the Wellness Paradigm podcast. So, um, yeah, those are my favorite places.
Smashing. Thank you, Shannon. It's a fascinating talk with you. Very inspiring, your story. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, wow. I just think it's so inspiring to hear Shannon go from all of those health issues, the inflammation, the hormone issues, the cystic acne, having to walk with a cane at the age of 27, and still feeling strong enough to look at alternatives to drugs. And it doesn't mean that drugs are no good. It just means that Shannon questioned if there was something else she could do, including changing her diet. And because she followed the autoimmune protocol, including cutting gluten and sugar, even if it wasn't forever, this made a huge difference in her life. And it was the first step for her. Now, we don't all have the same first step, but every journey starts with the first step. But cutting down or cutting out sugar is much easier said than done. And in my experience, the most difficult step is the first step. And that's why I'm inviting you to take the cravings quiz. It's a 10-question quiz that I created especially to get you thinking a little deeper about your cravings. That's the first step. And if you want to go deeper and get the guidance and accountability that you need to get rid of your cravings, slim down, and finally feel in control around food, then the Freedom from Cravings Formula 90-day program could be exactly what you need. In the program, you'll get step-by-step guidance and customized support through the 5-step formula that I've developed to help you get control over cravings so that you can finally live your life with more energy and fit into your favorite clothes effortlessly and feel confident in your food choices so that you can ditch the shame and embarrassment that you feel every time your emotions make you slip or fall off the wagon, and so that you never feel like you're on some kind of a restrictive diet. If you're at the stage of your life where you're finally ready to look after yourself, let's chat. You can hop on a free clarity call with me at any time by going to aftersugarclub.com and clicking on Program at the top. You'll also find the link with the show notes together with this episode. So go to aftersugarclub.com. Speak soon. That's it for this week. Keep in touch and see you soon for another episode.